Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa la. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're having a lot of problems with our stream today. I am sorry about that. I think we are finally in a place where we can go live without. Can people hear me? Inshallah. The problem is that now, obviously, my face is not visible, which is, I think, not the worst thing because I am actually trying to show you some of the things that I have prepared for you, and I think this might be a little bit better. So my apologies again for the stream hiccups, but here we are. Let's talk about zakat, please, one more time. I appreciate that, and sometimes it takes a while for us to get things right, but alhamdulillah, now I feel that now we have this going. It might be good to go, inshallah. Okay, so alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Zakat is haqqun wajib fi malin khas li ta'ifa makhsusa fi waqtin makhsus. That is what zakat is. It is a obligation for on a certain type of wealth given to certain type of people in a certain very specific time. Okay, that's how the scholars describe it. So we're going to talk about what is it, like what is zakat and what do you give zakat on. Number one, who gives zakat and who is zakat given to. Number three, when do you give zakat? And number four, where you give zakat. I'll talk about that before the how. And lastly, how is zakat calculated? And we'll do this worksheet that I have prepared for you. All of these resources I'll share with you, inshallah ta'ala, on our Facebook page, so you can access them, inshallah ta'ala. Can I just get a comment from people saying that is it okay if they can hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let us talk about, as we are discussing these aspects, what is it? Let's start with the what. The benefits of zakat, we know why we understanding the benefits will make us understand zakat and really appreciate zakat. Okay, so one of the benefits of zakat is, and charity is, that it is a proof of faith. Zakat is a pillar of Islam. Zakat is, like the Prophet said, Bunya al-Islam ala khams. Zakat is built, or Islam is built upon 5 pillars. One of them is zakat. So it is a proof of faith. Also the Prophet said, as-sadaqatu burhan. Giving charity is a burning proof of a person's faith. So zakat is that. It's a very important aspect. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that كل امرئ في ظل صدقته حتى يفصل بين الناس أو قال حتى يحكم بين الناس. The Prophet ﷺ said that every single person on the Day of Judgment will be under the shade of their zakat, under the shade of their charity, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges the people. So this is something that is an incredible act of worship, an incredible act of devotion, when we can give zakat for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or give charity for the sake of Allah. That is something that actually will be a shade for us on the Day of Judgment, that will protect us from all the calamities on the Day of Judgment. And this is hadith as sahih, and that's narrated by Imam Ahmad, and Imam Al-Albani has said it is authentic. Number 3, ma naqasa malun min sadaqa. The Prophet said charity does not decrease wealth. So that's a benefit of zakat. In fact, linguistically, as I mentioned in the previous live session, zakat means to grow and to increase and flourish. So zakat actually makes our wealth flourish. It makes our wealth grow, even if at the end of the transaction you have maybe lost some dollars. But in fact, the reality is zakat makes everything flourish. Our charity, the blessings in our wealth, all of that is a part and parcel of the benefit. Last thing I'll share about zakat is an institution of Islam. Zakat, currently we give zakat as like individuals. I give zakat to this charity, someone gives zakat to this mosque, someone gives zakat to an individual. We are individually taking care of zakat, by and large, especially in the West, in North America. But back in the day, back in the time when there was a stable Islamic um, governance, zakat was an institution. Even today in Islamic countries, there is zakat is an institution in many places. But back then, it was particularly a very important institution. This was the arm of the government that would eradicate poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah number 21, uh surah number 22, sorry, surah Hajj, ayah 41: الذين إن مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. These people are the ones who, if we establish them in the land, give them governance in the land, they control the land, its resources are under their governance. Number one, aqamus salah, they would establish the prayer. Okay, say their prayers regularly. Also, establishing the prayer, that means establishing the mosque institution, taking care of the spiritual needs of the community, taking care of the educational needs of the community. Aqamus salah, that comes under all of that. Wa atawu zakah, and then they would establish the institution of zakat. That means working and establishing the social services arm of the community, taking care of the needy, taking care of those who are downtrodden, taking care of those who are temporarily in need, taking care of those who are in debt, administrating, collecting zakat, administrating disbursement of zakat, working towards eradicating poverty. That's the two main objectives of an Islamic government according to this ayah. Number one is to establish the prayer, the spiritual, hub of the Muslim community, and then number two is to establish zakat, which is the social services arm of the Muslim community. And both of these go hand in hand, as you see in this ayah and many, many other ayat. The point is actually this ayah, or in fact, zakat was meant to be not just like an individual act, it was meant to be an institution. And in some places it is, and in back in the day it certainly was. We have narrations of Umar radiallahu anhu. In his time, there was famously people who had there was zakat to be distributed, but nobody was there who was poor enough to accept zakat. And that, you could say, was an instance of poverty being eradicated. And that's an incredible accomplishment. Happened again in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the Umayyad Caliph. And when the excess of zakat was there, they would take zakat and put it to use, like paving roads and whatnot, and doing many other acts of good worship. After, of course, the main people who were eligible to receive zakat were all exhausted and none of it remained. The point of the example is zakat, when it was an institution, eradicated poverty, and we have numerous instances in our history to point to as evidence to that. And it is a beautiful thing. It is an absolutely amazing thing when it is established. Imagine, a person like Imam Shafi'i would say that a person should be given zakat who is poor, so much so that they're not poor anymore. That is Imam Shafi'i's opinion. Think about that. This is not like a small handout. A person is given enough wealth that, in a sustainable way, in a way that they don't abuse it or exploit it, they are literally lifted from poverty, right from this institution of zakat. And that's an incredible thing, one of the most amazing parts of our history, of our legacy. Some words we should be familiar with as we are talking about zakat. Zakat, as defined above, as I defined it here, it is حق واجب في مال خاص لطائفة مخصوصة في وقت مخصوص. Okay, meaning it is a specific type of, it's an obligation on a specific type of wealth given to specific type of people at a specific time. So that is what zakat is technically defined as, and definitely it is a pillar of Islam and obligation binding. Sadaqa is a word that's used for any type of charity, like the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu ma'rufin sadaqa." Every good action is an act of charity. Kullu ma'rufin sadaqa. And that is obviously an optional thing. Any charity given monetary outside of zakat is considered to be optional, not a pillar of Islam. Nisab, the minimum amount of money you must have before you pay zakat, that, folks, is called the nisab. And its measure back in the day was in gold and silver, dirham and dinar and dirham. But what happened is that we approximated from these ancient measures, and today it comes out to about 85 grams for gold and 595 grams for silver. And the idea is that the minimum of the two is considered to be the nisab. For example, they say ويضم الذهب إلى الفضة في تكميل النصاب بالأجزاء. The idea being that for us, applied to us, this idea is whatever of the two is lesser, you would take that and give zakat on it. So today, what's lower, silver or gold in value? People on Facebook, let's see if you are going to answer me. People, what do you think? People online, are you able to type something or say something? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, I was hoping for a more interactive session on Zoom, but قدر الله ما شاء فعل, we are not able to actually connect through Zoom. No problemo. I actually was figured out like a bootleg way of showing you my face along with the notes I have prepared for you. So alhamdulillah, that could work. Now, uh, so we take the minimum of the two, that's the nisab. Now we have what to give zakat on. We're still talking about what, when, where, how. So right now, and who? Right now we're talking about what. What is zakat? This is zakat, as defined above. Now, specifically, let's define it as what to give zakat on. The wealth, malin makhsus, the specific type of money that we have to give zakat on. Do I give zakat on money? Yes. Do I give zakat on my cell phone? Probably not. In fact, no. Um, so let's look at it. Zakat is given, as defined in the books of fiqh. It is given upon the following asset classes. Okay, it's given upon cattle, livestock, al kharij min al ard, crop yield, someone who's a farmer. And now I'm mentioning this for the sake of for completing the topic. But if you have cattle or crops, mashallah, you can come and ask me later. I'll tell you how much zakat you owe on your cattle and crop. But the one that we're interested in is al-athman, or cash and cash income. Okay, that is what to give zakat on. Business commodities, urud al-tijara, the items, the products sold to make money. These are zakatable items. That's what zakatable items are. Anything outside of this is not zakatable. Now, there is some parts of this that are maybe more detailed. There's some explanation required there. So let's go through them step by step. Cash is pretty obvious. It's cash that you have in your bank. It's cash that you have in your pocket. Maybe some cash that you've stuffed under your pillow, because now coronavirus is making people really afraid. Uh, it's also cash income. Cash income is money that you are earning from any type of an investment, any type of money that's coming, any flow of cash that's coming into your account. That is considered to be cash income, and that is zakatable. Okay, now business commodities, products you sell to make money. This is if my business is to sell services, that's not necessarily a commodity that's zakatable. Okay, but if my product is selling say bottles of water, okay, then I would have to pay zakat on the bottles of water that I have in inventory after the conditions of zakat are met, which is, it has passed a year and so on and so forth. Okay, I'll explain this point once I get to, you know, once I get to this point right here. When I get to who gives, that's when I'll come back and loop into this point again. All right. The wealth that you have has to be accessible wealth. Istiqraruhu. This is one of the conditions of what zakatable assets are. This is important for us. Istiqraruhu is defined as tamamul mulk or tamamul milk fil jumla. So it is something that a person has access to. Immediately, we can think of some exceptions in our modern financial system. So pensions, for example, we don't have access to pensions. Pensions are from that perspective, they are not considered to be zakatable. They're exempted from zakat. RESPs, Registered Education Saving Plan, for people who are saving for their kids' education. These are also exempted because in reality you don't have access to this money. Your child will pay zakat on it if and when, inshallah, they get that money, and if and when the condition of zakat are applied to that child later on down that road. All types of locked-in retirement accounts. I don't actually know all of them off the top of my head, but there's many types of them. As long as a person doesn't have access to that wealth, they are exempted from that money is exempted because it is in locked-in retirement accounts. There is, I specifically said locked in. I didn't mention RSPs or TFSs that are self-directed, or RSPs that are self-directed. I'll come back to that, inshallah, in a sec. Okay, next up for us is exemptions. There are exemptions that are made by scholars of fiqh for certain types of assets, and these are, sometimes there's a difference of opinion among the scholarly body. Regularly used jewelry, that's one. Okay, regularly used jewelry. Now this is exempted according to the school of Imam Ahmad and Imam Ash-Shafi'i, and it is not exempted in the school of Imam Abu Hanifa, to the best of my knowledge. But definitely in the school of Imam Ahmad and Imam al-Shafi'i, it is no zakat on jewelry that is, like they say, وَلَا زَكَاةَ فِي حُلِيِّهِمَا أي حلي الذكر والأنثى المعد للاستعمال أو العارية. Okay, it is zakat that is exempted is zakat. There is no zakat on the jewelry that is al-mu'ad lil-isti'mal, that is used regularly. It's used by the person who owns it. Okay. Now, I am from a Pakistani background. So, for example, my mother has jewelry that her mother gave her, and then she gave that jewelry to my wife, who will pass that on to my daughter, and then maybe she'll pass it on to her kids as well. And I don't think anybody has ever worn that jewelry. These are heirlooms. Okay, these are considered to be heirlooms. These are not regularly worn jewelry. This is like something that is a type, is a way that you are, it's a family treasure. It's a family. It's an heirloom. So those types of jewelry should be included, in my humble opinion, and the opinion of my teachers that I've studied from, because they are not regularly worn. The reason why regularly worn jewelry is exempted, because it's kind of like the clothes of the person, especially for the women. It's considered to be like their clothes. So if a person is exempted from zakat from their clothes, that kind of follows. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said that laysa fil huliyi zakatun, in jewelry there is no zakat, and that's explained as jewelry that is regularly worn. Okay, that should be exempted, but in my opinion, heirlooms should be included. Gold and silver only. Precious metals are exempted. Rocks and stones like diamonds are exempted. This is gold and silver only. Gold and silver for investment. Maybe people have bought gold and silver. They're keeping these billions. They're keeping these coins of gold and silver. These are not regularly worn jewelry, right? Unless you wear the coin around your neck or something. I don't know. Maybe some people do that. But unless you do that, it is not regularly worn jewelry, and thus you should be giving zakat on that money. Okay, that is some of the exceptions for jewelry. TFSAs, again, we're talking about what to give zakat on. And I'll summarize this when we do the how. I have a spreadsheet for you. I'll show it to you, inshallah. It will make sense. All of it will come together there. TFSAs are tax-free savings accounts. This is basically money that you put in, and any money this could be in any type of investment. Halal or haram, that's irrelevant to the TFSA. Okay, but TFSA is when you invest the money that is any growth on that investment is not taxed by the government, and you can immediately withdraw that money whenever you want. You can withdraw from that TFSA. There is no taxes of any sort. Okay, TFSA is considered, according to the fatwa of the scholars, the scholars at Amja, for example, they have two main ways of looking at investments in the markets. Okay, either you consider it as a investment that is earning you rental income like dividends, or you consider it to be an investment like it is cash. Okay, and that cash is growing. And Allahu Alam, the stronger opinion seems to be the way we invest most of the time, whether it's mutual funds or ETFs that are halal or whatever halal portfolios that people have usually. And again, this is a very summarized zakat workshop, so I cannot go in all the details, but usually TFSAs are treated like cash, especially because they're short-term investments, generally speaking. So thus they should be added under cash as zakatable assets. And you have istiqrar, you have access to it, you can withdraw it. Okay, RRSPs that are self-directed. So I have a retirement account, I put money in it, I invest in it myself. That's self-directed. Self-directed RRSPs there is a tax. There's like a tax that's applied if you withdraw that money, and that is more for like the accountants what the withholding tax is. But the point is, there is a tax applied, but at the same time the money is there. Istiqraruhu is accessible. So the opinion that I follow in this matter is you take the value of RRSP, particularly RRSP value that is considered not like dividend, but investments like cash, and you take that and you subtract from it the withholding tax, and then on the asset or whatever is remaining, you pay zakat. The how part I'm going to come to. I have a spreadsheet. I'll show it to you. Okay, inshallah ta'ala. The spreadsheet will bring this all together again, but I want to go through this point by point. Anybody has questions, you can please type them on the Facebook page, and I can try my best to answer it for you there. The zakat on RSPs has more details. Okay, and if you have specific questions about it, you can ask me afterwards. There's been some individuals who I had a conversation with. They were extremely distressed about how much zakat they're paying, and these people are retired, and they're like, if we continue paying zakat at this rate, we might end up being eligible to receive zakat. So clearly there's a misapplication of zakat in their cases, and those particular cases are best to be dealt with on a one-on-one basis. So you can message me afterwards, or you can leave your message on the WhatsApp, on the Facebook page. We can talk about it then, inshallah. Okay, house. Do I pay zakat on my house if I own my house? Of course not. Zakat is houses are not zakatable. They are excluded, exempted from zakat, like it says in the books of fiqh. وَلَا زَكَاةَ فِي غَيْرِ مَا تَقَدَّمَ. Anything other than what we have mentioned, there is no zakat on it. Okay, so everything other than this is exempted. If I am, if I have a bunch of cell phones, okay, not zakatable. If I have a bunch of, I don't know, I like to purchase um, um, and store lots and lots of coffee, for just bizarre example. Okay, no, not zakatable. There's no zakat on that. Okay, uh, maybe I, whatever it is that is an asset, there is no zakat on it, other than these things that are mentioned. The point of a house, there's some details when it comes to an investment home. What happens if it's an investment home? Imam Ahmad, for example, says, ولا قيمة ما أعد للكراء من عقار وحيوان. He says, or his school, the opinion it's not considered the stuff or the houses that are given out as rentals, or animals that are given out as rentals, because back in the day you would lend your animal for rent. This is like car rentals back in the day. You rent a camel rental. um, and he says that kind of assets are not zakatable, but the investment, or the obviously the money that you earn from that, is added to your cash at bank, or your cash income. That's what I was referring to over here. Cash income, that is perhaps if a person has a retirement home or an investment home they are invested in, that money is zakatable, but the value of the house is not zakatable. Okay, and likewise land is same as house. And Imam Ahmad says something very interesting. He says, "Walau akthara min shira'i al-iqar farran." It's like, even if a person is just buying land to run away from zakat, still we will not bind them to zakat, because in reality, that's between, if a person is doing this, there is a level of good faith when it comes to zakat, and that good faith has to be exercised when it comes to calculating it and giving it out. And as I'll speak about it here, who gives zakat in a moment. um, the idea is that this is a trust that the Muslim has, and the Muslim will not abuse this trust. If you consider like rental income, like a house that's an investment home, when a person sells that home, that cash then would, once a year has passed on it, zakat will be paid on it, right? So there is eventually things get around to being a zakat, or having zakat on them, but as a principal, property is not zakatable. uh, the rent from it is zakatable. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So that was the what is zakat, what is zakat given on, what type of assets zakat is given on, who gives zakat. This is an interesting thing. So we're gonna do like a then and now type of game, Jeopardy style, then and now. So back then, when I say back then, I'm talking about, say, a pre-industrial revolution. Okay, back then, zakat was calculated on each asset class separately. What were the asset classes? Bahimatul an'am, crops, gold and silver, and business assets or products that you sell to make money. Okay, each asset was a different zakat calculation, and within each asset, like cattle and livestock, you would have different calculations for camels, and different for cows, and different for goats, etc., etc. Okay, so each asset class was calculated separately. Okay, and zakat was when a zakat collector would come around. This was back in the day, especially under Muslim governments. When zakat collector would come around, he would assess uh, your value, the value of your wealth that is external. So the asset class of your cattle and livestock, he would assess that, and then charge you zakat on that. But what's inside your home, your money, maybe some business products that you're selling, that is something that that's a person who figures it out themselves and pays zakat on themselves. So back then, that's how things were. Okay. Today, zakat is calculated on your net worth of zakatable assets. Okay. Uh, this is important. Today, we don't separate different things in different categories. Generally, we find a net worth in dollars, and that's what we pay zakat on. All right. So that is how it's done today. This is different than how things back then were, and the difference will become apparent in how we calculate. All right. But just note this point. Back then, one lunar year has passed. Okay, so I have money. I acquired that money. This is an asset class. This I have gold and silver. This is an asset class. I am uh, the clock for that asset class starts when I acquire it, and a year later I give zakat on it. The clock for my crops starts when I have harvested my crops. The clock for my camels starts when the camel is born, for example, etc., etc. It would be different asset class would have a different timer or a different clock. Today, the way we have like our cash flow is that our cash is often scheduled. Okay, paychecks are scheduled. People who are receiving child tax benefit from the government, that's scheduled. Everything comes at a schedule. Okay, if you were to now start to track each uh, income at each point, you will have so many entry points of your cash. It will become, in fact, very difficult. Do you see the problem? If a person gets paid monthly, just assume, and they get paid child tax benefit once a month, and they get maybe like some other monthly income, another like paycheck, for example. Okay, that is three per month times 12, that's 36 entries of money and cash into your bank account. That's 36 things you're keeping track of. That's quite a lot of calculations to do. So the simplified way of doing this is as follows. And this is the fatwa that is from the scholars of Amja, and this is what I'm sharing with you all. Let's divide our zakat calculations into two categories. Category number one: scheduled money, paychecks, child tax benefit, pensions that are coming into our account, whatever payments that are coming in at a regular frequency. Okay, that is one category. Category number two is money that came in a lump sum. Maybe I sold my car, I got $25,000 out of it. Maybe I sold something, I got a lump sum of cash out of it. Okay, so separating money that's scheduled and money that's lump or that comes in lump sum. Money that's scheduled, here is how we pay zakat on it. At the end of the lunar year, pay zakat. So the lunar year begins with Muharram, ends with Dhul Hijjah. But you can basically pay at any point. You can have your personal uh, start date and end date for the lunar year. Most people's start date for the lunar year for their personal calculation of zakat is usually Ramadan. That's why we're doing this around Ramadan time, because most of the time people give zakat in Ramadan. That's a good thing because Ramadan is a time of blessing. Ramadan is a time of charity, and we do more good in Ramadan, hoping for more ajr and hoping that it becomes more of a habit for us to do that good continuously. Now, if say Ramadan, first Ramadan is the beginning of your lunar year. Okay, so at Ramadan 1, first of Ramadan, I do my calculation of zakat and I pay my zakat on the final amount that I calculate. That is money that is scheduled. And I explained to you the rationale behind it. I've had people who have disagreed with that. Alhamdulillah, there's no problem with that. But I'm explaining to you this is because it's a simplified approach to being able to calculate and pay zakat on money that is scheduled, to simplify the calculation, because otherwise it becomes extremely complicated. Money that is lump sum has its own tracker. Okay, so assume I got money, lump sum money, in Sha'ban. Okay, the month before Ramadan, I got a bunch of lump sum money. I got $30,000, for example. Maybe I got a tax return right now. Around this time of the year, you get a tax return right before Ramadan. Okay, my tax return is not $30,000, nowhere near that. But assume it's a lump sum that came. Uh, I will track that lump sum separately. See? And that is because we want to be fair. We don't want to just lump everything together into one amount, especially when a whole year hasn't passed. But at the same time, we want to make things streamlined and not too complex. So this is the approach that I recommend. Calculating zakat on scheduled payments on 1st of Ramadan, do the calculation, pay zakat. Lump sums, track them separately. And the lunar year, once it passes, pay zakat on the lump sum after that. Okay, so that is who gives zakat, right? Like a little bit of an intro to who gives zakat. Um, the scholars mentioned the person who gives zakat is a free person, so they're not a slave. Alhamdulillah, we don't have slaves anymore. Someone who's Muslim, someone whose wealth the nisab has reached. So they have enough money to meet the bare minimum requirements of nisab. Okay, and that we will come to inshallah in momentarily, the exact dollar figure for that. Money is accessible, inaccessible money is not counted, and the lunar year has passed. This is the person. If a person qualifies for this, they are eligible to give zakat. So let me actually now show you my zakat calculation, zakat calculator 2020. That's what I'm calling it. Zakat calculator. All right. Zakat calculator 2020 has I have put the spot price of gold as 2090 and the spot price of silver per per gram is sorry, per ounce is $23.52. Okay, so that is the spot price. According to that, the nisab for silver, which is the lower nisab, is $449.98. So if at the end of my calculation, zakat is, if my net assets here, you see this little thing right here, if my net assets at the end of everything are greater than the nisab of the silver, okay, then I will be paying zakat. If my net assets are lower than the nisab of silver, then I will not be paying any zakat. Okay, so that is the figure, and we will come back to this spreadsheet. We'll do this calculation inshallah a little bit towards the end. I want to quickly get through a few of these topics. Again, I'm sorry because we started late and we had a whole bunch of issues with Zoom today. Allahul Musta'an. But inshallah, there is good in all things that happen to us. Okay, and I appreciate your patience in me getting through this. Does the orphan give zakat? There's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. The orphan's wealth, of course, is under the protection of the guardian. And according to the stronger opinion in the matter, the guardian of the orphan should pay zakat on the wealth of the orphan until the orphan has reached the point of being someone who is financially responsible enough to take care of their own money. And the Prophet ﷺ has said, "Ala man waliya yatiman lahu malun falyattajir fihi hatta la ta'kulahu sadaqa." That the person who is the guardian of an orphan that has wealth should pay zakat on that. Should invest that wealth lest zakat eats it up. The point is, zakat is then binding on wealth of the orphan, and also the guardian of the orphan should be smart, not irresponsible, and take that money and invest that money, those savings, so that as zakat is continually applied to it every year, the investment grows enough to a point where when the child reaches puberty, they are able to have some of that, or hopefully more of what they inherited by that time. Okay, so that's an important principle, and based on that, we get the idea that orphans, their wealth is eligible or liable for zakat, and that is something that still is, there's a bit of a difference of opinion among the scholars of Islam on that. The deceased, should the deceased person pay zakat? Well, the deceased person is gone to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are obviously not paying any zakat because they are passed away. But the deceased person, uh, their their inheritors, that the people, their family, the heirs have to pay zakat on the wealth of the deceased. Inshallah, the Excel sheet, I will drop a link for it, inshallah, in the comments, so that people can access it and utilize it, inshallah ta'ala. um, so, for example, the Prophet said, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ بِالْوَفَاءِ, that zakat is like a debt that person owns, that a person owes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is, there's more of a right that is paid than any other type of debt. So the idea is, when a person's inheritance is being distributed, من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين, before the inheritance is distributed according to the laws of Islam, there is the wasiya, the uh, any bequest, excuse me, that a person will make specific to individuals that are not uh, automatically included in their inheritance. Maybe they want to donate to a charity. Maybe they want to give money to like someone who was really nice to them but is not related to them. So that is wasiya. And dain, which is debt. And at that point, along with debt, is the debt of zakat, if this deceased person has the debt of zakat on them. And so that is something that should be done. Wallahu a'lam. Okay. Um, so that is about who pays. Who pays zakat? Free Muslim person, Nisab is reached, wealth is accessible, lunar year has passed. Okay? Uh, who receives it? Who gets it? Okay? There are 8 categories of the people of zakat, and I'm going to display them to you here. Okay, so this is the ayah number 60. Surah number 9, ayah 60, Surah Tawbah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ فَرِيضَةً مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. Alms, this is zakat, are only for the following categories of people. Number 1, the poor, al-fuqara. Number 2, the destitute, al-masakin. Number 3, those who collect zakat, those who are employed by the institution of zakat, al-amilina alayha. Number 4, wal-mu'allafati qulubuhum, conciliating people's hearts. This is explained as people who are new Muslims, that want, they're kind of on the edge, giving zakat or giving them some of the zakat to entice them to stay in uh, within the fold of Islam, or someone who is very close to accepting Islam, like Imam Ahmad says, yurja islamuhu, right? Or yurja bi'atiyatihi quwwatu imanihi. Either you're hoping that they become stronger Muslim because of the money you give them, or you're hoping that they're on the edge of accepting Islam or on the brink of accepting Islam. That zakat will kind of seal the deal. Either of those things are considered to be acceptable. It's not a bribe, of course, but this is like a gift of generosity to help people see the beauty of Islam in all aspects, its spiritual beauty, and also the beauty of it in social services, taking care of people. Okay, now the Prophet did that, and he really reached out to people who were harsh, and he broke through to them through this. And the Prophet didn't, he wasn't burdened by the responsibility to break through the people. His job was just to convey the message. He could have left it at that. But he ﷺ went above and beyond to try to reach to as many people as he could, try to pull in as many people as he can to the the fold of Islam, and that is a beautiful sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُم. Number 5, وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, for freeing slaves. فِي الرِّقَابِ is for freeing slaves, somebody who is a slave in bondage, to help them earn their freedom, or somebody who is al-asir al-Muslim, a Muslim prisoner also is included in this category. They can be given zakat to help them earn their freedom. So, for example, if there's a Muslim prisoner who is, wrongfully imprisoned, they're trapped in, they're a victim of the system, and they don't have any way to, no one can fight their case. They don't have the money to support themselves. That's an excellent candidate for zakat, because they are a Muslim prisoner who should be helped in this manner. Okay, number 6, والغارمين, for those in debt. For those in debt, there's quite a bit of detail in what this means. The those in debt are those who there's one category that's a bit more complex. I'll skip that, but the one more easy one to process is the one who تدين لنفسه في شراء, someone who became indebted because of what they were purchasing, whether that purchase was acceptable or haram, and then they have repented. Like if it's haram, they repented from that purchase, and they're still in debt though, right? Because their debt isn't paid by tawbah. So يُعْطَى وَفَاءَ دَيْنِهِ وَلَوْ لِلَّهِ. That person, even like when they're poor and they have indebted themselves, okay, and has made bad decisions, bad choices, but now they have made repentance and now they want to be better people, يُعْطَى وَفَاءَ دَيْنِهِ. Their entire debt is paid off. That is very, very interesting. SubhanAllah, think about that. How, like we talk about, there's people who are in debt. There's people who are crippled by debt, and the scholars are very clear about this. They don't want people to abuse zakat. Okay, and this is number 6 on the list. So the preceding ones are actually a slightly higher priority if you think about it, but still it's on the list. It's a service that the Muslims need to provide to other Muslims. The ones who made bad decisions shouldn't be defined by that crippling decision for the rest of their lives, and zakat is there to rescue them. And that's a beautiful thing. That's an amazing thing. I mean, I wish we could like really bring this and revive this in our times, where our zakat, after serving those who are in need, who are poor and destitute, becomes the way that the shackles of debt are removed from our fellow Muslims. How amazing would that be? Wafi sabilillah, number 7, spending for God's cause. This is explained as the person who is a voluntary warrior for fighting for the army of the Muslims. Of course, this doesn't really apply to us in modern times. The fatwa by the scholars of Amja and many other lajnas, many other councils, is that any institution, any organization that's defending Islam, okay, not just a mere masjid with its brick and mortar, but an organization, institution that's defending Islam, that's supporting the cause of Allah through their words and their publications, that should be included in this, because Allah says about jihad, وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. Use the Quran to wage the intellectual jihad against the people. So that gives us the idea, according to these scholars, that this should be included, and Allahu Alam for what is correct. But I wanted to mention to you what the old school classical opinion is and what the modern day interpretation of it is as well. Okay, and lastly, wabn sabil, travelers in need. This is a temporary need, a person who is temporarily without their assets, without their money. These are the 8 categories of those who are given zakat. The top two of this, number one and number two, are al-masakin, al-fuqara wal-masakin, the poor and the destitute, explained as the following. Okay, the top two of them are the poor and the destitute. Explained as follows, or the difference between them is explained as following: the poor, the faqir, is like really, really poor. Okay, or as like some people will say, this being poor is like a state of mind, but you're broke. So it is. It's a they're broke. Let me put that as that. They're broke. Okay, because a person can be really rich but still be poor. Like their state of mind is really poor. This is idea is that this is a person who's broke, and like the scholars of tafsir mention that لأن الله بدأ بهم وإنما يبدأ بالأهم فالأهم. This is somebody who should be taken care of first. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started the ayah or the list with them, and what's most important is at the top of the list. So that is one very important consideration, someone who's broke. And that is من لا يجدون شيئا من الكفاية أو يجدون بعض الكفاية أي دون نصفها. Broke is defined in the books of fiqh as someone who has 0% to 50% of their needs. Money that covers 0 to 50% of their needs. 0% is this is completely broke. This person has nothing. 50% of their needs, like if they need $3,000 in a month, they have $1,500 in a month. 50%. The destitute, the miskeen, is defined as somebody who يجدون أكثرها أو أي أكثر الكفاية أو نصفها. Okay, this is somebody who is 50% to 100%. They have enough to cover their needs, like half of their needs, all the way up to 100% of the needs. The books of fiqh point to the fact that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls people who are employed masakin. أَمَّا السَّفِينَةُ فَكَانَتْ لِمَسَاكِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ فِي الْبَحْرِ. The people who are miskeen were working on the ship. They owned the ship and they were working on the ship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them masakin, destitute, because they may have a ship and they may have a job, but that doesn't mean that they can pay their bills, right? Because maybe they don't catch enough fish, maybe they don't earn enough. So this is all. These two are the top two categories, and without a doubt, they should be taken care of first. And interestingly, the one who's destitute, somebody who you may not think needs zakat, somebody who just gets by paycheck to paycheck, zakat is also something that could be given to them to help them overcome the difficulty that they're in. And the ideal case of zakat would be if zakat could be like in two categories. So if you can give zakat to somebody who is poor, somebody who is a new Muslim, okay, and maybe this new Muslim also has a lot of debt, you've hit 3 categories out of 8 with your zakat, mashallah. Not to say that should be the only way you think, but look around you for people who can be helped, especially those who are either completely broke, and more pertinently for us, in my opinion, the destitute, the masakin, those who have jobs, have a little bit of income, the single mothers who work a couple of jobs, and they're like just barely making it. Those kind of people is very, very important to take care of those. Wallahu alam. And there's some difference of opinion about in the scholars of what is miskeen and what is faqir, but I'm mentioning to you the opinions from the school of Imam Ahmad, and actually this is the preferred opinions of the scholars of, say, the Lajna Daima, the fatwa given by Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen and Sheikh Ibn Baz. When they explain these topics, they explain it with the same exact definitions. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Okay, so that is the 8 categories of people. That's the people who receive it, not given to, and this is important. Okay, and then we'll come to finally our discussion of how to calculate it. But zakat is not given to a Hashemite. What's a Hashemite? Hashemite is from Banu Hashim. Okay, not either to the family of Abdul Muttalib. لا لهاشمي ولا إلى مطلبي. Okay, these are the family. Like this is the immediate and extended family of the Prophet ﷺ, and they are exempted, they are disallowed from accepting zakat. The Prophet ﷺ actually also was disallowed from accepting zakat or sadaqah. This was one of the proofs of his prophethood, but he could accept a gift. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, but this is something that the is mentioned, and something that maybe is not applicable to us immediately, but as a FYI, you should know. It's not given to what's called a faqirun tahta ghani. Okay, it is a not given to someone who is uh, poor, but they are dependent of somebody who's rich. So an example is, say, like a poor son that is supported by a father, right? His father is rich, but the son is poor, but the father pays for him. Like if the father is either paying his rent or he's living in his father's basement or something, okay, that person isn't, even though he himself is poor, but and he's old enough not to be like a binding dependent of his father, but his father is taking care of him, and thus he isn't given zakat. So that's something that's mentioned. Zakat is not given, then this is important, not given vertically, okay, but can be given horizontally. What do I mean by that? Vertically is la ila far'ihi wa la ila aslihi. Okay, far' is the child, a person's kids and his grandkids, and so on and so forth. Okay, and al asl is a person's parents and grandparents and great grandparents, and so on and so forth. Okay, so zakat is not given to these. Okay, zakat is not given to these category of people. Okay, zakat is the rule is not given to a dependent. Okay, لا تجزي أيضا إلى سائر من تلزمه نفقته. The one who you are bound to pay for their expenses, like a wife and kids, for example, you cannot give zakat to them. That is a something that is a generic rule. So no zakat given vertically, but horizontally is okay. On the family tree, horizontally is fine. تجزي إلى ذوي أرحامه من غير عمودي النسب. It's okay to give to the close family members, exception being the ones that are immediately above you, like parents or grandparents, or immediately below you, like kids or grandkids. Okay, so horizontally is okay. That means brothers and sisters, that means cousins, that means uncles and aunts, that means anybody who you can give zakat to from your family that is not min al asl aw fara. And this is beautiful. This is really beautiful. Giving zakat to family is amazing. You know why? Because it's two acts of worship. It's an act of zakat, giving the zakat act of worship, and it's the act of maintaining ties of family, keeping good relations with family. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's highly encouraged. A wife given to a husband, there's a difference of opinion about this. The scholars have disagreed on this matter, and Allah Ta'ala alam, it's best in those kind of situations to kind of stay away from that and give zakat to somebody else. Who can receive zakat has to be a Muslim. This is important. The person who receives zakat has to be a Muslim. The Prophet said about zakat, تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. It is taken from their rich and given to their poor, i.e. given to the poor of the Muslims, taken from the rich Muslims, given to the poor Muslims. That's why it has to be a Muslim. Now, what happens if you give your zakat to a Muslim NGO? You give your zakat to Islamic Relief or IDRF or any of the excellent Muslim NGOs that do good work around the world. They, by law, cannot differentiate between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. They have to give zakat or they have to disperse charity without discrimination. Otherwise, their charity status will be taken away. So what is recommended, and this is what the Muslim charities, alhamdulillah, do, is that their zakat projects are projects in areas where it's vastly or almost entirely the population is Muslim. Okay, and that's a beautiful way to bypass this difficulty. And also, like the scholars, like the fatwa from Amja on this matter is that if zakat is given in area where most of the people are Muslims, a vast majority of people are Muslims, like say Palestine, zakat is given there by an NGO, but there's some Christians in Palestine, then it is fine because the vast majority of Muslims should suffice. Wallahu a'lam. So this is again some of the matters of, we talked about what, we talked about who, when. We also touched upon it that you calculate it at the beginning of the lunar year. First of Ramadan, for example, that's your lunar year, you calculate it then. But your lump sum, you can defer it and calculate that as a separate tracker for it. Pay it right away. That is something that you can do. You can pay it in installments if you want. That is fine as well. Those are both acceptable, inshallah ta'ala. You can pay before. Say like before the year ends, you find someone who's in desperate need and you're like, subhanallah, this is a person who could really use help. Here's my zakat. Okay, you can do that. You can pay zakat ahead of time and then calculate later how much it is that you have to pay. So that is that. Where you can give zakat, relatives, like I mentioned, are beautiful to give zakat to. Locally is encouraged. Okay, تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ, like Imam Bukhari and others mention that it is highly preferable that zakat is given to the ones who are around us that are in need, and al-aqrabuna awla bil ma'ruf, the ones who are close are have more of a right to get good from you, right? So that is something that they mention. Zakat can also be given abroad, that's no problem, but preference is locally. Under normal circumstances, the recommendation would be to give zakat locally. Under extenuating circumstances, the recommendation would be to give zakat wherever the need is. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So that is the what. We also covered the why. What is zakat? What is zakat due on? Who pays? Who is it paid to? When is it paid? And where is it paid? Now, how do you pay it? Or how do you calculate it? Finally, at the end of this little, at the end of all of this, we finally arrive at our destination. Okay, here's the zakat calculator. I'll drop a link for this, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Spot price of gold, you can update this amount if you like. The amount or the price of gold right now is probably the same. Now, I am using, if you can see here on my screen, I'm using the resale price of gold, which is, this is something that I learned from and discussed with Sheikh Abu Isa from the UK, that spot price of the gold is not a reasonable amount to go by, because you can never sell gold for the spot price. You always get it at the resale price, which is approximately 80% of the spot price. So this is the calculation that adjusts your zakat accordingly. What we're going to do, what the spreadsheet does, is that it takes your gold and silver assets and all other types of assets, cash, TFSAs, RRSPs, liquid investments, takes away your liabilities, and finally gives you a dollar figure of how much is your net value when it comes to zakat, and then it will tell you how much zakat you will end up giving. Okay, so let's see. If I have, say, maybe I have found 5 ounces of gold, okay, and I have maybe 50 ounces of silver, because some brother gave me really bad advice back in the day to buy gold and buy silver. So the amount for me for gold is this much. This is the amount from C8. This is the amount that I end up having from my for my calculation, or from my the value of my gold. Excuse me. Likewise, the value of my silver, that's the amount I have for that. Cash at bank. So maybe I have $4,000 cash in bank. Okay. Cash in hand. Maybe I have maybe $200 cash in hand. Okay. Value of TFSA accounts. Okay. As I mentioned, the simplified calculation that I recommend is TFSA accounts are considered to be cash. So maybe my TFSA is worth $10,000. Okay. RRSP. Okay. Now RRSP, this is the self-directed version of the RRSP, not the locked-in version of a retirement investment, because that you don't have access to. This you do. And we're going to assume the withholding tax is 30%. We're going to take the higher number of it. You enter your RSP amount. Say I have $30,000 in my RSP. Okay. Now the calculation will not just add $30,000. You see that I had 23,000. It doesn't add straight up 30,000. It will take 70% of this 30,000. All right, 70% of 30,000 is 21K, and that is what it adds to this final figure here. Okay, other liquid investments that you have access to and you can get. This may be outside of the markets, this may be in the market but not in a registered account. You can put that there. I'm going to put nothing there. Loans receivable, money you are owed. According to the most of the scholars, money you are owed, you pay zakat on, unless money that you are owed, you have no hope of getting it back. Okay, that's the exception. Exclude the ones that you have no hope of getting back that money, but money that you are pretty sure you'll get back as a loan that you've given, you include that in your zakat calculation. Let me say I gave maybe $5,000 of zakat. All right, my assets are now $49,000. Okay. Now, liabilities. What happens to my debt? I have a mortgage, I have student loans, I have car financing. Okay, if I was to just deduct $300,000 as a debt that I owe, then for the next 15 to 20 years I'm not paying any zakat. That doesn't work. That's not how this is calculated. The way it's calculated is you take the monthly loan payment, multiply by 12. That's the yearly amount that the person pays to pay off their debt. That is what's considered that year's debt for the person, and that's what will be subtracted. Also keep in mind, this is the principal part only, not the interest, because there's no zakat. You cannot subtract interest from your zakat. In fact, you can't even pay interest on money that is interest. So you cannot even pay zakat on money that's interest. It's considered to be impure, and in Allah la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Allah only accepts what's pure. So interest investment should actually be, or interest income should be discarded in like a charity and not counted as zakat, nor counted for zakat. Monthly loan payment. So maybe I have $1,500 that I pay monthly for my mortgage. Okay, and maybe I have $500 of student loan, and maybe I have also another $300 that I pay for my car monthly. These are the monthly loan payments I'm making. When you put that, it will calculate all of your long-term loans and give you a yearly figure. This is your yearly short-term loan liability. And that is what you can subtract from your zakat assets. Personal loans payable, money you owe. I owe maybe a friend a $5,000 that I borrowed because someone told me to buy gold at the wrong time. Okay, now I owe this man $5,000. Okay, rents and bills and utilities that are outstanding for last zakat year. So this is only things. So I pay my utility bill say in May, but the utility usage would be in April, and April would still be in the last zakat year. So I put that as say like maybe $500 rent and more precisely bills here, right? And then I get my final figure. This is only, by the way, from like the month before. I get my final figure, liabilities, and now I have my net assets. $16,000 is my net assets, and 2.5% of that $16,000 is 410, and that is a zakat that is to be paid now. All right, that is how this calculation works. Now imagine for a minute that I didn't have any gold. Okay, I didn't have any gold. Imagine I didn't have any silver. And imagine I didn't really have any RSPs. Okay, I'm totally miskeen here. All right. But maybe I saved in like RSPs. Imagine this calculation for a sec. I have maybe $30,000 of assets, but all these other liabilities are still there. In this case, my net assets are actually in a negative, so no zakat is due. Okay, let's make it more interesting. Let's make it so that maybe I have $4,000 in TFSA. Maybe let's make it 3,500. Okay, you see my assets now are barely $600. The Nisab, as it comes for silver, is $449. Maybe I make it a little lower. Maybe I make this from 3,500. I make it to, how much was it? 600. So okay, maybe I make it 3,200. Okay. All right. You see, if I make that my calculation, this is my final assets. This is my total liabilities. I have a net amount of assets that I have, alhamdulillah, but that net assets is less than my nisab. So do I pay zakat? Yes or no? No zakat. Okay, that is how it's done. It's not done strictly by looking at your cash bank balance or your bank balance. It's not done strictly by looking at one or the other. It's calculated. The how is by looking at the entirety of your assets that are zakatable, and then you finally arrive at the figure. Now, this is simplified. There are details, there are exceptions. People who have complicated situations will have a more nuanced answer, but this is, in my opinion, a spreadsheet that will suffice. Thank you, Sister Sahar, for answering. I appreciate the answer. This is a spreadsheet that will suffice, in my opinion, for most people, and my experience with for most people, of obviously people who have very complex situations. They obviously will have more personalized calculations, but this, inshallah ta'ala, would suffice, and that is how you calculate zakat. Alhamdulillah, with that, we will conclude. I really appreciate everyone's patience for sticking around. We covered in our zakat workshop today the topics of what is zakat, what zakat is to be paid upon, what are the exemptions, okay, who gives zakat, who is zakat given to, when do you give it, where is it preferred to be given, and finally, how do you calculate it. Those were the topics we discussed. We really appreciate you all being with me. I hoped we could have a little bit of a back and forth that is usually better on like Zoom or something, but walillah alhamd, either way is good. Alhamdulillah, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments on the Facebook page, and I will answer them afterwards. If not, then we will inshallah conclude our session. Jazakumullahu khairan for being here and participating. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, what I'll do is I'll end the session and I'll type people's answers out as they ask the questions or whenever they ask questions, inshallah ta'ala, and I will drop a link for this in the video, inshallah. Thank you very much. Subhanakallah.